The message came in just after I rinsed the mugs and turned off the kettle. Group chat vacation 2026, Palm Springs. Miles had posted a glossy brochure photo of a private villa with a pool and wine bar, followed by one sentence. The vacation is $900 each. If you can't afford it, stay behind. There was no greeting, no call, no "Mom, would you like to join us?" Just a decision made without me and a price tag, attached like a gate. I stared at the message a long time, then closed the app. I didn't reply, didn't argue. Just stood in the quiet of my kitchen, letting the words settle somewhere cold inside me. He knew I was on a fixed income. He knew I wouldn't ask for help. He also knew I wouldn't fight back. That night, as I folded laundry, my phone buzzed again. This time, a fraud alert. Unusual activity detected. 4 luxury hotel bookings total, $4,216. My heart jumped. I opened the banking app. The charges were already pending. The reservation confirmations were sitting in my inbox, all 4 under one name, Shelby M., my daughter-in-law. I didn't remember sharing my card with them, but when I clicked the emails, each had already been marked as read. Someone had been in my account. Maybe not just recently, maybe for longer than I'd realized. I locked the card, changed the password, and stared at the empty inbox for a while. No apology. No warning. Just a quiet theft dressed up as assumption. I used to believe keeping peace meant keeping quiet. Now, I wasn't sure which cost more, my money or my silence. I closed the laptop, wiped down the table, and sat in the dark with a glass of water, staring at nothing. The morning sunlight hadn't even reached the kitchen window when another ping came through. A shared Google Drive folder. Vacation 2026. Family planning. Inside were subfolders labeled Itinerary Spa Options, Boat Day, and one titled Shared Costs. I opened the spreadsheet. There in neat columns were names, dollar amounts, and room preferences. Next to mine, confirmed. Paid via Geneva's card. I sat down, phone in hand, the screen glowing with their plans, as if I'd said yes to all of it. They hadn't asked. They'd just inserted me. I pressed Miles's number before I could overthink it. He answered on speaker. "Hey, Mom," he said, breezy. "Did you see the folder?" "Cool." "Right, I did," I said. "Why does it say I've paid?" "It's already planned." He said, not missing a beat. "We just needed to get the reservations in. It'll be good for the family to reset. We've all been so tense." "I didn't authorize that charge," I said quietly. He sighed like I was the one being difficult. "It's just easier this way." Then Shelby's voice chimed in from the background, loud and unbothered. "Don't worry, Geneva. We'll pay you back when the taxes hit. Promise." I didn't say anything, because that's what they said about the fence. The one I paid to have replaced after the storm at Shelby's insistence. "We'll pay you back when the refund comes in Geneva." That was 2 springs ago. The check never came. I stared at the cost breakdown. Every dollar accounted for except mine. Every assumption typed with a smile. After I hung up, I didn't delete the folder. I printed it. Then I went to the closet, pulled out the accordion file I hadn't touched in years, and slid the sheet inside. The last tab was labeled Trust Broken. That afternoon, I logged into my bank account and started pulling old statements line by line. By the time I clicked into the video call, they were already halfway through debating restaurants. Shelby wanted something Instagram-worthy, while Miles argued for the one with the private chef package. Everyone else laughed along, offering opinions like money grew on the trees outside their windows. No one paused when I joined. No greetings. Just Shelby saying, "Let's vote in the drive folder after this, okay." I waited a beat, then unmuted. "Can I ask something before we finalize anything?" Shelby's eyes flicked toward the screen. "Sure," she said too brightly. "I got a fraud alert yesterday," I said. 4 luxury bookings, my card." She tilted her head like she hadn't heard right. "That's just the hotel. It was a family decision." Across the screen, someone chuckled. Miles's cousin, maybe. It's just money, right, Jen? It'll all come back around. I could feel the tightness crawling up my chest the way it always had when someone else decided what I should give and how much of it. Still, I didn't raise my voice. I clicked a few keys, shared my screen, and pulled up the banking statement. Here I said, pointing to the highlighted charges. That's the card I use for medical emergencies. I never agreed to this. The silence lasted just a moment before Shelby forced a laugh. We assumed you'd want to contribute. You always do. There it was. The expectation I hadn't spoken against loudly enough all these years. I clicked out of the screen share. That's not the point, I said, but no one was really listening anymore. The conversation had already shifted to swimsuit colors. I left the call without saying goodbye. No anger, just an odd kind of clarity. Afterward, I didn't make tea. I didn't do the dishes. I sat at the kitchen table, printed statement still in hand, and opened the manila folder from yesterday. Then I started pulling older receipts, familiar charges I had ignored before. This time, I didn't look away. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with a notepad, my laptop open, and the quiet hum of the refrigerator filling the room. I'd told myself I was only going to call the bank to dispute the hotel charges, but once the representative confirmed they'd been made using my stored card information, something inside me hardened. After the call, I turned on two-step verification for every account I had. Then I began scrolling through my statements month by month, line by line. The pattern appeared faster than I wanted to believe. A streaming service I'd never signed up for. A sushi restaurant in Portland, though I hadn't been there in years. A spa membership Shelby's favorite chain charged every other month under a name that wasn't quite mine. Always small amounts. Always timed just far enough apart to blend into the background of groceries and utilities. I'd missed them because I'd trusted them. By midnight, I had a list 15 transactions spanning nearly a year. I took screenshots, printed receipts, and circled dates with a red pen until the page looked like a warning sign. The next morning, I walked into the police station. The officer at the counter listened without judgment, just handed me a form and a calm nod. "You're doing the right thing," he said. I didn't feel right. I felt stripped. When I got home, I expected silence. Instead, my phone buzzed nonstop. Texts, missed calls, notifications. I opened one out of reflex. Shelby had posted a photo of a sunset with a caption, "Imagine being betrayed by the one person you thought you could count on." The comments were full of sympathy. People told her to stay strong. Some even wrote that family could hurt the worst. I didn't reply. I closed the app, muted the group chat, and turned the phone face down. Outside, the wind rattled the windows, and I let it. For once, I didn't try to fix the noise. Saturday morning, I opened the curtains and nearly dropped the mug in my hand. Miles stood on my porch, arms folded expression caught somewhere between irritation and pity. He hadn't knocked. He was just waiting like I owed him an explanation. When I opened the door, he smiled tight, practiced the kind of smile he used to get out of parking tickets. "Hey, Mom. Thought I'd stop by. You weren't answering your phone." "I had nothing to add," I said. He exhaled the sound somewhere between a sigh and a laugh. "You're really taking this too far? It's just a trip. You filed a police report." "Over some hotel rooms, I'm protecting myself," I said, keeping my voice even. He shook his head. "You're going to blow up the whole family over this. Shelby's been crying for days. You made her look like a thief." I looked at him carefully. "She used my card, Miles, without permission. That's not an accident." He frowned. "You've always been so cold about money. You care more about dollars than people. I thought we were family." Family. The word used like a shield, a lever, a way to make me bend. I didn't argue. Instead, I reached for my phone, pulled up the voicemail, and pressed play. Shelby's voice filled the space between us. Sweet at first, then quick, urgent Geneva. Can I get your card number? Just to hold the reservation, I'll cancel it right after. The recording ended. Miles's expression froze. The charm slipped first, then the color. For a second he looked young again, caught small, unsure. He stepped back from the door, rubbing the back of his neck. You didn't have to do all this, he muttered. I did, I said, quietly. Someone had to. He didn't reply. Just walked down the steps and into the driveway without looking back. When I closed the door, the silence felt heavier than before, but cleaner. I went to the table, picked up the folder, and added a new page labeled Voicemail. March 9th. By evening, I had decided to drive to Talia's place. Talia opened the door before I could knock, her arms crossed over a sweatshirt, no makeup, hair tied back, like she hadn't planned to see anyone. But when she saw it was me, her mouth softened. She stepped aside without a word. Her apartment smelled like lemon cleaner and quiet. We sat at her kitchen table, 2 mugs between us, steam curling toward the ceiling. I thought you didn't talk to anyone anymore, I said gently. She shrugged. Didn't seem worth it. I didn't push, just waited. After a few minutes, she said, they did it to me too, you know. Miles and Shelby. My fingers tightened around the mug. They used my name to rent a car for their anniversary trip she went on. Said their IDs weren't updating in the system. I only found out when the toll notices started piling up $900 in late fees. I was 22. I let the silence stretch. Then the rest came like water through a cracked dam. A cousin who loaned them a credit card for one emergency and got it back, maxed out. An aunt who covered part of their tax bill after Shelby claimed it was a paperwork mistake. None of them ever got repaid. Talia looked at me, eyes sharper than I remembered. I thought it was just me, that I'd done something to deserve it, that I was being dramatic. I shook my head. You weren't. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to certainty, not comfort, not relief, but clarity. This wasn't about one hotel or one mistake. It was a system. One they had practiced, refined, and dressed up in family language. And I had just become the first person to say no without taking it back. I stayed until the sun dipped low behind the buildings, then hugged her at the door. It wasn't long or dramatic. Just enough. Back at home, I opened the folder again and wrote across the top of a fresh page, pattern of conduct. Known victims. The next call would come from my sister. My sister, Janine, offered her house. Neutral ground, she said, though. I doubted anything about this was truly neutral anymore. I arrived, first set a manila envelope on the dining table and waited. They trickled in slowly. Miles, Shelby, my cousins, a few aunts and uncles, the ones who'd messaged the ones who hadn't. Shelby clung to Miles's arm, wearing oversized sunglasses indoors, though we all knew why. When everyone settled, Janine tried to ease the tension. Let's just talk it through calmly. Shelby didn't wait. She launched straight in. We never meant to hurt anyone, she said, her voice trembling. This has been a huge misunderstanding. Geneva never said we couldn't use the card. We just assumed. She looked around for sympathy. Miles stayed silent, staring at a spot on the table. He hadn't met my eyes since the voicemail. I said nothing. Just reached into my bag, pulled out a stack of papers, and began handing them out. Each person received the same folder screenshots of statements, email confirmations, and the transcript of Shelby's voicemail. A list of recurring charges, names attached. Nobody said a word. I'm not here to fight, I said once the papers were in their hands. I'm here to stop this. No one asked what this meant. They knew. Janine looked stricken. Her lips pressed tight. One of my cousins shifted uncomfortably in her chair, flipping through the pages like they were legal documents. They weren't, but they could be. Shelby whispered something to Miles, but he didn't look up. I didn't raise my voice, didn't cry, didn't explain myself. I just stood, picked up my coat, and walked to the door. Nobody followed. Nobody tried to stop me. I didn't slam the door. I didn't offer closure. I left like someone who had finally reached the edge and stepped past it. The email from Miles arrived before sunrise. The subject line read simply, "You didn't have to do this." It was 3 pages long, part accusation, part confession. Words like selfish and cold were scattered between paragraphs about family unity and how disappointed Dad would be if he were still alive. At the end, he wrote that I'd humiliated him, that I'd turned the family against him, and Shelby that money had made me cruel. I read it twice. Then I archived it. By midweek, the fallout had spread. 2 cousins stopped answering my calls. One aunt blocked me on social media. Another sent a short text. "I'm sorry for how they treated you, but I can't get involved." A few relatives reached out privately. Quiet apologies, small messages sent late at night. I knew something was wrong for years. I just didn't want to believe it. Their words didn't make me angry. They just felt late. At my next appointment, Dr. Lang listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "People who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always call them betrayals when you finally draw them." It landed like truth, simple, sharp, undeniable. That afternoon, I went to the bank. I opened a new account under a new institution separate from everything the family had access to. I updated my will with a single added sentence. "No shared financial responsibility shall be assumed unless documented in writing." The notary didn't ask questions. She just stamped the paper and smiled faintly, like she understood something about women who come in alone. At home, the phone rang twice and stopped. A new silence began to fill the house, not empty, but defined. The circle around me had grown smaller, but the edges were clearer now. I spent the evening sorting files, labeling envelopes, deleting contacts I no longer needed. When the house finally went dark, I realized I could breathe without waiting for the next demand to arrive. The call came on a Wednesday morning, just after I'd watered the plants. "This is Sarah from Westline Credit," the voice said. "We flagged an application for a new account in your name. It was declined, automatically fraud alert on file." I didn't flinch. I didn't even ask who submitted it. I thanked her, hung up, and opened my email to log the incident with the case number. Then I made tea and let the moment pass without letting it define the rest of my day. I had prepared for this not just with passwords and frozen credit, but with the understanding that people don't change just because you finally said no. Later that afternoon, Talia texted, "Hey, Aunt Jen, want to do a weekend up north?" "Just us. It's all set. No surprises. I booked everything through my own card and the receipts are in your inbox. Thought you might like the mountains." The message was short, respectful, clear. I opened the folder she'd sent. Neat PDFs, full transparency, no assumptions. No line for me to fill in. I said yes. On Saturday, I boarded the train with a single suitcase and a sweater I hadn't worn in years. No one called to ask where I was going or to ask for anything. Somewhere past the valley line with trees slipping by and sunlight warming the window pane, I realized how quiet my mind had become. They had wanted my silence, but I chose to speak. They had wanted my money, but I chose myself. They had expected the same Geneva, the one who said yes to keep the room warm, the one who stayed at the table even when she hadn't been fed. But that Geneva was gone. Now there was only space, choice, and enough distance to see the pattern for what it was. Back home, I unpacked slowly. The train ride had left me calm in a way I couldn't quite name, like I had traveled farther than the distance on the map. After I put the kettle on, I took a small notepad from the drawer and wrote down 7 words in firm, steady script. My boundaries are not up for discussion. I pinned the note to the inside of my front door. just above the handle where I'd see it every time I left and every time I came back. That evening was the monthly potluck for my credit counseling group. I'd never spoken before, just nodded, listened, passed the bread. But this time, when the conversation circled to the cost of saying yes, I cleared my throat. I thought I was protecting the family. I said, hands resting in my lap. Every time I said yes, I thought I was keeping things together. That if I just covered the shortfall again, they'd feel safe, and I'd still be useful. Someone across the table gave a slow nod, but I wasn't protecting anything. I was just delaying the damage, pushing it down the line like interest on a debt no one intended to pay back. No one interrupted. No one minimized. They just listened. When I got home, I washed the dishes from earlier, folded the blanket on the couch, and dimmed the lights. I turned off my phone completely for the first time in weeks. No alerts, no unauthorized charges, no emergency texts demanding I fix something I didn't break. Just stillness. I sat in that quiet feeling, the air shift slightly with the night breeze, the floor cool under my feet, the walls exactly where I left them. I had been so afraid of not being needed. But this felt different. Not needed, not used, just here, and finally, fully mine.